Hi, welcome to Tech Bike Parts. Today we're going to do a video about the new Triumph Street Scrambler. We've bought it as a development bike. We did a lot of development work on the Street Twin, and although this is basically the same bike, obviously there's some differences that we need to address when we're making parts for the bike. Now what we did with the Street Twin, we rode it straight away with a remap. We didn't ride it with the stock mapping because we knew it was too lean for what we wanted to do. With this bike, I've purposely ridden it up until past first service with the stock settings on the bike, just to see what it was like. Give the bike a chance, let it run in, and see what we felt about the fueling, suspension, etc. So basically, no modifications to the bike at first. There's one or two little things I changed. I had to change the petrol cap because I simply can't cope with this with gloves on. When you go to a garage, you've got to take the keys out, put the key in, fiddle about. So I put a flippy up Monza cap on, just as easier, because you're visiting garages quite often with this being just a 2.5 gallon tank. So after riding it for a bit, one of the first things that really hit me was the fueling. The standard fueling is way too lean. It's not a dig at Triumph. This is a problem with all the new Euro Cat bikes. They all have a problem. They've all got to be super lean to meet the new emissions rulings for European regulations. You get misfiring. You can feel the bike is really lean. What did surprise me was the lack of torque. I had ridden a stock Street Twin before I got mine, and I found it was quite torquey. This bike was noticeably less torquey than the Street Twin, and the only thing we can put it down to is the tight nature of the catalytic converter on the front compared to the Street Twin's cat. There's very confined space where it's got to run into here, and it obviously acts as a constriction on the exhaust. So after running in, that was one of the very first things we did. We've made a pipe up. Although it looks stock, doesn't actually have a cat inside it. It's got a special crossover inside that enhances the torque, but the beauty of it is it looks totally stock from the outside. It gives you quite a bit of more volume, but the important thing is it does improve the performance quite a bit, especially the torque. Now the sound of it is really nice as well, even with the stock pipes on, and I may run it with these pipes on for a while to see how we get on with it. It's great if you're doing long distance. It's not too loud, but it has got a nice little rasp to it with the cat out. Now what we did do is we put the Vance & Hines 2:1 map on, which is a lot richer than the stock map and works really well with this D-Cat. It gave us instantly 10 miles an hour on the top speed, improved the fuel economy, and gave masses more torque. It actually wheelies on the throttle in first gear now if you turn the traction control off. That's how much difference it is. Okay, so that's basically the mapping of the bike sorted out. It's running really well now. Got about 1,000 miles on, and the bike's loosening up really fine. Compared to the Street Twin, it's almost the same sort of performance, but the bike rides totally different to a Street Twin, which I was really surprised at because of the changes Triumph have done have been quite small. Obviously the bars are a little bit higher. They've put a nice set of fat bars on, which is what we always did with our bikes in the past. The footrests are slightly lower and slightly further forward, and that has totally transformed the riding position. I found the Street Twin a little bit cramped and tight for height. I had to put a high seat on, but the seat they've put on this is a perfect height for me. I'm sort of average height, and it's very comfortable. You can ride it all day, whereas the Street Twin, maybe after 100 miles you wanted to get off and stretch your legs a bit. Also on this bike you've got the added advantage of spoked wheels, which to suit a scrambler they're much nicer looking than the alloys. And for the price that this bike is pitched in at, it's not worth buying a Street Twin and converting it to a scrambler, because you get all the bits on this bike as stock. Other good things, the tyres. I'm really happy with the tyres. They suit the bike fantastic. Yes, if you're riding off-road you might want to fit something a bit more aggressive on, but on the road they grip fantastic. They've actually got much better turn-in and front-end grip than the Street Twin tyres. The Pirellis fitting on the Street Twin are a bit of a disappointment actually, and I'm thinking about putting some different tyres on my Street Twin. But even though these Mitzlers are made in China stamped on the sidewall. They're very good quality, I have to admit. Other things on the bike that we really like is the fact of the seat and the rack. You can interchange this with a little pad on the back, and it's really easy to change. Just one screw and you can pop that over. Now we've made a rack for these bikes, which I've put the rack on because as you can see, I've been off Forest Road riding it, and if you do get stuck, you've got to have somewhere to get hold of the back of the bike to drag it out. And for a scrambler, it's not very clever because that isn't actually, you grab a hold of it and it's all plastic, and you will break something if you're trying to pull it about. Whereas this, you can physically get hold of the bike and drag it over. Now we've started developing a centre stand for the bike, but we've also put the paddock stand mounts that we do on the bike as well. But we'll go around the bike in a moment and have a look at all the finer detail. The ride of the bike, as expected, the shocks are very similar to what's on the Street Twin. Slightly longer and a slightly more travel, but they're still very underdamped. And the front forks, again, slightly longer. Travel is very short for an off-road targeted bike. So we're going to be looking at that in another video in the future. We're going to look at changing the damping in the forks, changing the springs, and also increasing the travel a little bit. And we're also going to be fitting a set of piggyback shocks to the back with a different setup and slightly longer to lift the whole bike up. And apart from that, I think we'll have a little look around the details of the bike now, and we'll cover some of the facts there. Okay, so now we'll have a look around at the finer details on the bike, just to discuss one or two points. We'll start with the front end. One thing I didn't like about the styling, because they've gone to a 19-inch front wheel on the bike now, like the trade over from the old Scrambler, is Triumph penny pinching didn't use a 19-inch radius front mudguard. They've used the old Street Twin mudguard, and if you look at it carefully, the curvature's wrong. Maybe just me, but I think it looks wrong. So I'm going to be maybe trying a different mudguard on the front, because it's one of those little things that just bugs me. I've taken the horrible side reflectors off the front here because they bug me as well. Obviously comply with the regulations, but I think that spoils the look of the bike. I've fitted Triumph's accessory fly screen. It gives a little bit of protection, but not an awful lot. I think I probably need something a bit higher for touring. Now I have bought this bike for doing larger distances on. I was going to go the big trailie route, but I've yet to find a big trailie that I actually like the look of. I'm quite sad. I like to have a bike that looks nice, not just functions nicely. And I think the Street Scrambler sort of ticks a lot of boxes there. It has got a lot of street cred, it actually looks quite nice, it's comfortable, and if you don't do a lot of actual off-road riding, it's perfectly adequate for doing forest fire roads and trail riding, etc., which is what most people will do on a trail bike. And it handles really quite well on the road, considering the inadequacies of the suspension, which we'll address later. Moving on to underneath the bike. Now, because we've got no cat underneath the bike, we have a big empty space under here, which Triumph have covered up with what looks like a nice heavy-duty sump guard, but it's actually a big lump of plastic. It ain't a big worry, because even if you do hit a rock, all you're going to hit's these frame tubes, because there's no engine underneath there, and they're going to act like a sump guard. And it wouldn't be the end of the world if you bashed one, because they're replaceable, these tubes here. Now, we will be offering our decat conversion pipe in the future once we've finished developing it. We're 90% of the way there. We've just got to make some tooling up, and basically what you'll get is a box, a balance pipe box here, and this pipe, because this is all welded into one, and this pipe here, and it will bolt onto either the standard silencers, or it will bolt onto the aftermarket Vance & Hines silencer as well. And that should be in the market in a couple of months' time. We are developing a centre stand. This is just a prototype at the moment. It's just trying to get the length right, because we're using it with stock suspension at the moment. That was one of the reasons why we haven't put longer suspension on, so we can get the height right on the centre stand. So again, that's something we're just playing about with at the moment. As I say, if you don't want to go to the trouble of putting a centre stand on, you can just fit our little bobbins on the back, and it means you can get the bike up for giving a good clean, which this bike needs now because I've been fire roading it. One of the features I did really like on the bike is one of the things that we always used to hack off the bikes when we built them was the rear pegs. I only ever going to ride this bike one up, and you can unbolt this, which is a really neat idea. It just gets rid of an extra lump of weight off the bike that you're not going to use. Now I've put the accessory carrier on that comes with the bike, and I've put a carrier on as well because that gives you a decent amount of luggage space. And I'll probably put a pannier on the left hand side. It's good the fact that you can get a bit more luggage on here, because this side you can't carry anything on for obvious reasons. We may at a later date make some shorter pipes here, because in my feeling is they should end about here, just for the aesthetics of the bike. Talking of aesthetics, we are making a tail tidy fender eliminator kit for this, which will be the same as the Street Twin one that we're making, because this here is just all a bit plasticky and too big, and if you do any sort of serious off-roading, you're just going to knock all that off. But it's pug ugly as well. So I may make a bracket up to fit the plate on here under the light, and may change the light. Something that's in the process of being checked out at the moment. Again, we're looking at fitting different indicators as well. Maybe mount them up here out the way. Right. As I say, I'm generally very happy with the bike, and one of the things about riding a bike, you find all its small faults, and especially when I've ridden the Street Twin, you can compare them back to back. And I've also been riding it, comparing it back to back with a couple of old series bikes as well, so you can get the feel and the difference. And generally it rides like a modern generic bike really well. Anybody could probably jump on this bike and ride it. It's very learner friendly. Now, one of the small niggles I found with using the bike was, if you've got the pillion pad on, it's a bit of a pain getting the seat on and off. You've got to really pull the foam back to lift it up, and getting it back on again is even more of a fiddle. But one of the, even more niggly than that was the fact on the Street Twin, Peter, I'll just pull the camera over here, I'll show you. They're basically the same bike under the seat. On the frame here, you've got a little hook, which is for hooking your helmet on when you come to park your bike up, which is great because they made the seat unboltable, so you don't need any sort of elaborate helmet lock. You can hook your helmet on there. Now, for some reason, Triumph have omitted that on the Street Scrambler, and there isn't actually a hook under here. So what I've done as a little interim fix is there is actually a threaded hole in the frame here that takes the pannier mount, and a simple fix is an M6 bolt with a couple of nuts on it and a washer. Screw it into there, screw it up just so it's almost touching the seat, so you can't pull it off the top, and you literally hook your helmet on there on your D-ring, and then you can look it on. Silly little things like this, which are a pain, only take a few moments to fix, but Triumph should have been really addressed that when that already fitted the loop on the other model. Now, another thing you find when you've been riding the bike for a while is the fuel economy is really good on it. No matter if you ride it quite fast, it doesn't seem to make too much difference to the fuel economy. Even though the bike's got quite a small fuel tank, you get about 130 miles plus range out of it. One annoying feature is that the fuel light comes on in the 80 miles, between 80 and 90 miles, which it means you start to panic thinking you need to get fuel, but you actually have got about 50 miles left of range. Now, talking of fuel gauge, a little classic blunder that I made with the fuel gauge, I almost blamed Triumph for it, was I changed the levers. I put the earlier type levers on thinking, oh yeah, great, they bolt straight on, and I omitted to notice that the switch on the clutch perch on this side, Triumph have actually moved from the top to underneath, and there's a little nodule on the lever on the clutch that actually engages with the switch. Now I fitted the levers on and just didn't notice that it wasn't engaging with that, and everything on the bike worked fine, or so I thought it did, until I went to fill up with fuel. When the fuel light came on at 2 bars. Now after filling up, it doesn't always go straight back up again, but the gauge didn't go back up to the top and continued to go down as it was being used. Now I thought it's either a faulty fuel gauge or a fault in the ECU. So I mentioned it to the local Triumph dealer, and he knew straight away what the problem was. He said, "Have you changed your levers?" And I thought, strange, why changing a lever would do that? But apparently what happens is that the ECU samples the fuel only now and again, and it's normally when you change from 3rd to 4th and pull the clutch in, that's when it takes the sample, and obviously you have to have the clutch pulled in. So a weird one, and if you do change your levers and you come across that, or your switch is faulty and your gauge goes off, it's just one to lodge in the memory bank. But yeah, not straightforward. Yeah, so I'm going to continue riding it. I'm going to put some more videos up on rebuilding the forks, because we're going to change the damping in the forks, like I said, probably fit some emulators and some fork top ride adjusters, a fork lengthening kit, and some progressive springs. Now that should really sort the front end out. We're going to change the indicators, and we're going to put some different shocks on the back. Hopefully that will improve the off-road manners of the bike, and we'll get a few miles off-road on, and we'll do a further report on it from there. But generally, Triumph, you're doing a great job. I like the bike, I like riding the bike. It puts a smile on your face, which is the most important thing about these bikes. It's not a track day bike. You aren't going to break any land speed records on this thing. 100 mile an hour is about all it wants to do. It's starting to struggle after that. But if you ride it with the cat on, it's really hard work to get over 90 on it. That'll probably improve with getting a few miles on it. But like I say, it ain't a road burner. But it is a nice, comfortable bike to ride every day. Torquey, fuel efficient. You could ride this all day long without any problems. And like I say, it puts a smile on your face. So until the next video, keep enjoying your riding, and I'll see you next time.